Timmerman.
I'm Gwen Elliott.
We're both SIs, and I'm currently a tutor as well. Gwen has worked as a tutor in the past as well, so we have both sides of the spectrum. So our presentation is on better communication with students and staff, and hopefully we can give you some scenarios you might run into and good ways to handle them.
So what we're going to talk about today is some of the communication we have. We have non-verbal, or we have verbal, which is obviously talking, communicating with each other. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We have non-verbal, which is your body language, and then you have technology, which is email and texting. Sorry, I forgot how we were doing it.
No,
It's going through my head right
now. Roll.
Sorry.
So, verbal communication, these are just some little images on good communication skills and bad communication skills, and that's why we lift on 3. So if you communicate that we're lifting on 3, your gentleman won't end up on the floor.
We found that one absolutely hilarious. Going on to the verbal communication with your students. With students, you can be, as an SI and as a tutor, you can be more relaxed. You don't have to be so strict. You don't have to be so professional. You can avoid, one thing to do is avoid the teacher bashing trap. Oh my good gracious, my teacher, is so bad, blah, 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 blah. You're so much better than my teacher. There's traps you can fall into easily, and you want to make sure you don't.
Make sure to give them your full attention and be responsive. When you're speaking to a student, don't be distracted and talking to another one of your peers or classmates, because then they don't feel that you value their time as much as they're valuing your time with them. So to be attentive and give them your full attention, they deserve that respect from you. So it's a key thing to make sure you do. Watch your tone. This kind of applies to students and staff, and we'll get into these a little bit more in depth. With tone, when you're dealing with students, they're also your peers, so you want them to be relaxed, so you can joke with them a little more freely. You might even be sarcastic with them at times just to lighten the mood. And there are times where you might have a student who is in an SI session and they want to talk to the person sitting next to them, and they're really distracting the other student that's trying to learn, and you might actually have to be stern and look at them and say, listen, I understand, but if you want to have this conversation, can you please take it outside, because they're still trying to learn. So different kinds of tones will come up with students than what you might run into with a staff member. Ask questions if something needs clarified. Repeat the question that was asked. Several times when you are speaking to a student, especially if you're in math SI, sometimes it's confusing as to what you're reading in the textbook, let alone what the student's trying to ask you. So the part of the problem that they're having an issue with might not be what's common with another student. So you want to go on that normal track that you do, this is the problem I see over and over and over, but that isn't theirs at all. So if you need clarification as to what their issue is, repeat the question. Oh, did you mean you don't understand how to get a square root? Did you mean that you don't know the equation, what part of y equals mx plus b do you not understand? Those are things that you can clarify up by just repeating the question to them.
Or repeat the same question they just asked you. Say, okay, am I understanding this correctly? This is the question you just asked. I'm taking it as this is what you're meaning. Am I misunderstanding you and what you're talking about? And we go on to verbal communication with staff. And this is where we get into making sure you use the appropriate language and tone, because you need to think of, this is not your peer, this is not your students, these are, the staff, these are people above you, these are the people that are relying on you to help their students in the right direction, not stray them off. So you need to make sure that you talk to them not so jokingly, or, be a little bit more of the, ask the teacher, is it okay if I do this? Just be a little bit more professional. And we all have a different way of what professional is. But if you wouldn't say it to your grandma who's 90, I wouldn't say it to somebody who's your staff, because that's disrespectful. And then another thing is to maintain your eye contact. You want them to know that you are paying attention to them, that you're not just, you're looking over here off in La La Land, you're not even paying attention to what they're saying, that's disrespectful, and you don't want to show them that, because if they don't feel that you're good for that job, they'll probably not have too many nice things to say to your boss or the other staff around them.
Stay positive and avoid negativity, especially when you're talking to staff members, because any kind of indication of negativity does not reflect well upon you. Regardless of how bad a situation may be, you have to look at the positive aspect of it, whether it's how can I help remedy this situation, or what's your possible outcome on the positive end and not on the negative end. And then above all, because you will run into it time and time and time again, especially as an SI leader, beware of student confidentiality. There are so many times that a teacher's like, look at this test that a student took and look at all that they missed, and you really need to help them on this, or you really need to help them on that. You can't do it. You're breaking student confidentiality. So again, maintain a positive attitude. Look at your the SI instructor that you're working for, and say, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable looking at somebody else's grades. I feel that I'm invading their privacy. If you'll just tell me the issues that you need me to work on with this student, I can attend it that way, but I don't need to see their grades.
You get into that trap easily too, so whenever you feel you're falling into that trap, just make sure you can get out real quick instead of burying yourself deeper. And this is our nonverbal, which verbal is about 35% of the communication you have, and then the majority of it is your nonverbal, which is a 65%, which is your facial expressions, the tone of voice, the movement, the appearance, the eye contact, the gestures, the posture that you have. And we got that from the National Speakers Association, Australia Association, by Michael Grinder. And we have this really funny little comic that we thought was hilarious. There's this person obviously speaking, and he said, "This concludes my lecture on nonverbal communications. Any comments or questions?" Obviously they didn't have, you know, they were giving him feedback. One was bored, one was doing something, and the other one was giving his response back as well. So obviously that's nonverbal communication with how his speech was.
With nonverbal communication, this is kind of, it kind of interlaps. There's no difference between students and staff when it comes to nonverbal communication for the most part, because it comes back to the old adage, actions speak louder than words. So no matter what you say, how you're presenting it can have a completely different meaning. Always beware of, with your verbal non-communication, to be approachable. Don't have that angry look on your face like you're about to attack somebody. Be mindful of personal space. Most people don't like it when you're standing this close to them talking. Personal hygiene and appearance. Brush your teeth. You're going to be talking to other people. You know, don't come in your lounge pants and your slippers. It might be acceptable if it's your class you're attending, but it's not acceptable in a role as an SI or tutor. Additional things that you'll think of with nonverbal sounds: head movements, nod, winking, facial expressions, pauses and stress on words, which we're going to get into here in a couple slides or the next slide. The other big thing is that very frequently when you're dealing with multi-races, multicultures within SI and tutor, sometimes there's a language barrier, so you have to rely on these nonverbal communications to get across the point that you're trying to get across, whether it be writing it down so that there's a visual to go along with what you're explaining. So again, it kicks in where sometimes nonverbal is a lot of what you're relying on.
If you can't understand your person, maybe you can point to where, you know, you think they're talking about, or, okay, is it, you know, this, or sometimes they can't speak at all, so the only way to communicate is by nonverbal. And now we have technology with email and texting. And this is beware the words you use, and communication by writing can leave mixed emotions. And it's, I didn't say you were stupid.
I didn't say you were stupid.
I didn't say you were stupid. So they all say the same thing, but it's where you put that emphasis on that word. And it's in writing, obviously, you don't know where the emphasis is, where they're gonna put it.
Which leads you into some kind of techniques when you're dealing with email and texting. Know that giving students your personal info at most colleges, it's normally voluntary and it's not required as a tutor or an SI. They should be able to contact you through the school. They shouldn't have to have your personal information. If you choose to do that, that's your choice. If you do, set your boundaries. Let your students know at the very beginning, if you give them your personal information, don't text me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Don't call me at 6 o'clock in the morning when you got up with your kids and your husband. Set your guidelines as to what to include in your message. I know me and Gwen both work with several students. I work with some of them only one semester. I'm probably not going to store your phone, your number in my contacts list. So I always put that as a guideline. Make sure you put your name in your text. Tell me what it's in regards to.
What class you're in.
What class you're in. So the body of your message. Any other boundaries that you may have, make sure that they are clear to the students when you give them your contact information. Make sure that you have set expectations as to when you reply. Me personally, I work, I'm usually at college from 8:30 in the morning till about 5 o'clock at night, Monday through Thursday. And I'm either with somebody in a session, tutoring, or in classes of my own that whole time, with very few breaks in between. So I make it very, very clear to my students from the get-go that I'll get to you. But if you text me or you leave me a message, it might be at 6 o'clock at night before I can get back to you, because I'm very preoccupied throughout the day. So don't think that I'm ignoring you. I'm just busy, and as soon as I get a chance, I'll get back to you.
Where I'm a little opposite. I don't tutor anymore. I used to, but I'm no longer a student. So I'm in this wonderful area to where I'm just an SI. So I have a little bit more time, but that time is also eaten up by my 3 children. They tend to do that a lot. So as far as my boundaries go, it's, don't text me, I'm usually up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so if you text me early in the morning, I'm fine with that. If you email me in the morning, I'm fine with that. It's after like 7 o'clock, I don't want to deal with it because it's time to get the baths, get the kids ready, so that's where my boundaries are. So your boundaries are obviously going to be different, but like she said, make sure you really set clear to them. Because with me just being an SI, my boundaries are, I can help people from this time to this time and nothing else. I can't tutor like everybody else and say, okay, why don't you come to my tutoring session or set up tutoring time with me. I will send them to other tutors to help out, but just make sure you set that very clear of when you can do things and when you can't do things.
So on to more key things with your email and texting. Check with your instructor when it comes with your staff. Some instructors will let you know what appropriate methods of communication are, especially with them. Some instructors don't respond to email really well, so they're like, send me a text. Others will tell you, I don't text, send me an email. That's the quickest way that you're going to get a hold of me. So again, when you're working with your staff member, try to make that clear from the very beginning. What is your best method of communication, and what are their boundaries? When don't you want me to call? Do you not want me to call you in the evening hours or on the weekends when you deem that time with your family? Value their time. When you do an email, make sure it's short to the point. A lot of times when we read things, we skim through. So if you have an email that's a page long, they're probably going to miss some detail because they're going to skim through that. So if you keep it short, to the point of what you need, you're probably going to get the best response. And make sure that if you require a reply, that you indicate that in your message. Please respond to me at your earliest convenience, because you can't expect them to read your mind. It is all via email or texting, so there's not that verbal.
And then if you're on the receiving end of that, and if they want you to reply back to them, make sure you also do that in a timely manner, because that's part of revaluing their time. You want to make sure that they're not waiting around, or they're not getting upset because you're not responding to them in time. So just make sure that you're, giving them the same respect they gave you, as far as replying back in a timely manner. And if there's any confusion whatsoever, and any of the messages going back and forth, pick up the phone or talk to them in person. Don't continue the emails, because there's just going to be more confusion added on to that email. So the minute you are confused by something, or you're feeling that it's going in the wrong direction, like, you're getting aggravated by this email because maybe you're misunderstanding something, or they misunderstood understood something that you said, pick up the phone or talk to them in person at the earliest convenience. That way that it does not go any further than that message, and it is all cleared up and taken care of before it gets to a higher point of confusion.
So we're going to break right here, and we do have some scenarios that we're going to have you guys do some role playing on. I came up with about 10 different scenarios, but before I hand out my ideas, I want some feedback from you guys. Are there any scenarios, any issues that you guys have run into as SIs, tutors, staff, whatever it may be, that you kind of didn't know how to handle it?
Working with a student that gets easily frustrated, but it's a very superiority complex.
Okay.
So you try to explain something to them, like 1 + 1 is 2, and they get a quadratic equation out of it.
Okay.
And then them going to another tutor or another instructor and saying, well, they told me this, and that's not what you told them.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
I have kind of ran personally into that exact same situation just this last week. How funny. And I had a student that she was rather frustrated because anybody who knows me as a tutor on my campus, I am pretty much a straight shooter. And and if you're coming to me as a student and you want me to do your homework, you picked the wrong tutor. I'm not there for that. I am there to help you learn. And I had a student that when I was going through her notes, I was tutoring her in statistics, and as I was going through her notes, I realized very quickly that her underlying problem wasn't that she wasn't comprehending the material, because once you gave her a step, she could walk herself through. It was that her notes were so awful that when she would reference back to her notes, she didn't know what she had taken down. She couldn't read her own notes. So at that point, I had told her, this is what we need to do. We need to maybe focus our tutoring sessions on organizing your notes versus handling problems. So she got aggravated with me because she looked at me and said, well, that's not what I'm here to do. I just want you to help me with these problems. And I very kindly looked at her and I said, I can help you with all the problems that you want me to help you with. But if you don't understand the foundation, it's not going to do you any good. So sometimes just how you approach the subject. And yeah, the very next day, she went to one of the other instructors and she said, yeah, Carrie just won't help me. That was never what I said to her. I just wasn't giving her the help she was seeking. I wasn't willing to do her homework for her. So in some situations, the best that you can do is just handle it in a positive light like I did, and you're not going to win them all. They might go to your instructor or go to another instructor and have something not real nice to say about you, but as long as you know you handled it right, it's the best that you can do.
Sometimes that's all it comes down to, because I know Steve Tuckey, who's an instructor here, and said we're all humans, so humans make mistakes when humans are humans, so obviously humans are going to do whatever humans want to do, and some humans just tend to say, well, I didn't get what I wanted from them, I'm going to throw a tantrum now and go throw a tantrum to everybody who wants to listen, including so-and-so. And sometimes you just have to know that you did the right thing and trust in yourself that you did do the right thing. And there's, in some situations, you can't do anything else with that.
Let me follow that up a little bit. I'm sure we've all encountered situations where you have a real problem student, a disruptive student. And that's heard on my campus several times. The big mistake that you can make when you have a student who is really disruptive in whatever way, threatening, obnoxious, whatever, document everything. Don't just blow it off and say, well, she's having a bad day, or she's just always like that, or what, you know, that's just him. No, document and report everything, because
Good tip.
because
You never know.
it's for your own sake,
Yeah,
okay?
good tip.
You have a student that's raising all over campus, not just with you. Campus behavior boards and things like that, now they want to see the big picture. They want to know that, okay, it's not just this instructor who's having trouble with student X. It's student Y, it's instructor A, it's the financial aid office has had problems with them, everything. So if you have a student who's really over the line, you know, scaring people, whatever, documentation and reporting has got to be there. The average bad day, you know, the student who's consistently not a pleasant person.
And I would add on to that too, is learn your school's way of
Yes.
secretly getting help. Like for example, at LCC, we can pick up any campus phone, dial 1800, ask for the time. That's a signal, because 1800 is our campus police, and that's a signal for them to send someone down to the room.
Right.
Yes.
And that way, like the disruptive person can be there in the room, and they don't know you, just call them.
Most campuses have that, and make sure you know your student's disruptive student policy too.
Anybody else?
That's the worst case.
Great.
We've got one.
Anybody else have situations?
Something I've been dealing with this semester, more than in past semesters, where I have multiple students who are dissing on the same instructor. And what's interesting, and they're saying the same thing, but I'm not there to listen to it. That's not my job. And trying to, and I've talked to other, students, but I've asked other coworkers, well, how do you do this when your student starts teacher bashing and just like emotional vomiting on you about their instructor, what's it like, and how blah, 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 and trying to, in an effective but not volatile, adding to the fire, getting them back on track on what you're there to do.
Tip is what you're looking for?
Hey, I'll take whatever I can get.
Understood.
Because I'm gonna face it this week again.
Can I reserve yours till the end, because that's one of our role-playing situations, so maybe one of your fellow peers here will have a good idea.
Another thing I know that we missed that kind of goes along with that one, I'm not sure if every class does it, but they do have those at the end of the semester surveys about your class.
Yeah.
That's
Very-
not that, that's the only way to go,
Yeah.
but I know that was one thing that, now that you mentioned it, that we had forgotten in our thing, is we did forget to mention that part. I mean, that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
There's that option.
Very frequently, I tell them to express that, as I understand their concern. They need to express that in their end of the semester evaluation for that teacher, because that's their opportunity to be heard.
Yes, they've mentioned rate your professor
Yeah.
website.
The other thing is, yeah, everybody has an instructor that they can't stand. Yeah, you could use that one way. But when you have multiple students complaining about an instructor, at our campus, for instance, if you really have an issue with your instructor, your next line of defense is the division chair or department chair. And if multiple students are complaining, there may be something screwy going on in that classroom. There may really be. When one person comes in, I can't stand Professor X, he's just a creep, and yada, yada, yada. But you have half a dozen students complaining about Professor X this term.
And saying the same thing.
And they're saying the same thing, that Professor X is doing thus and so. that needs to go to the division chair, because there may be something going on with Professor X that we're not privy to. And maybe the division chair isn't privy to it either, that he or she needs to know.
And may not be aware of.
Right.
Okay. So we're gonna hand out these random role-playing things, pick a partner. And
Partner pick 3.
yeah, yeah, 2 or 3.
2 or 3, no more than 3.
I've got 10 role-playing scenarios, so. Together?
I'll be a third with them.
You'll be a third with them.
I shall join you.
You shall join. Oh, you're an SI leader. This is gonna be hard.
Oh, yeah, because it's not like you guys are so
I'm not.
You are not this semester.
I've never met one.
He's a tutor. Yeah, no, you're an SI, but you were a tutor.
Well, I'm tutor.
Okay. I bet you were an SI too.
I function like an I was, but they switched the instructor.
I'm jealous.
You're an SI leader, and while the instructor's at the room, you're until as a student approaches you, ask to answer the one of the questions.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. Sorry.
That's a balagan.
How do you feel
So everyone is out of the room.
But that's all
That's the easiest situation. You just don't answer.
That's the one I would answer. 2, inform them that it is against the student code of conduct. 3, I am obliged to report that to Balagan. Expect your mailing soon. She usually has about a week turnaround.
And usually when the instructor does that, like you are in charge, like technically they see you as the other person in charge. So they're not even gonna dare, at least not in my case, they never even dare ask because they know that even if they do that,
Those are sneaky things. Like Jessica told me once someone brought a take-home test into tutoring services, passed it off as a review sheet, because right at the bottom of the exam it said this is the take-home test, and they photocopied it with that. They just offset it enough. Yeah, I mean, they're sneaky little devils.
they are. It's weird because they put much more effort into cheating.
I know. Well, like that one girl that I was talking about at lunch. This girl that was like complaining, well, this instructor just likes to take points off. And it's like, well, one, it's not points you took off because you didn't get 100 or start with 100. You started with 0. And second is because you didn't do something.
Okay, how are we gonna play that situation? It's gonna be funny. Who is the SI? Who's the student who's like, hey,
Give me the bitchy
give me the answer. No, I swear, it's not really the answer. I did the exercise, but I just need some more help on
I
that.
suppose I can give it a shot, but I'm not sure how good I'll be at it.
She's the student, you're the SI, and I'm the
You'll be our French interpreter.
Hey, John, can you help clarify this question a little bit?
Well, what do you not understand?
Everything?
it's a test.
I said, unfortunately, it's a test. I can help you maybe with some of the words, but unfortunately, I can't give you the answer.
Well, what should I start with?
Oh, how have we gone over this in SI sessions?
I can't remember the method that you used for this particular problem. Can you at least give me the name of the method?
That's sneaky.
Yeah, I know.
That's so
So what is the question asking?
I really don't know. Can you at least tell me what the question's asking?
Well, write down what you think it's asking.
Why can't you just give it to me?
Because
It's not like
unfortunately,
you're
that
giving
is
me the answer.
against the student code of conduct.
But it's not the answer to the question.
But that would be required to inform the head of student compliance.
You're not required to do anything.
Yes, I am. Now?
We're gonna figure out a solution to your role play, and then we're gonna come back together.
What's the solution? You snap this student, he's gonna hate you, cuss you out.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, how would you?
What would you do? Did you watch that show? What would you do?
No, I never even heard of that, to be honest.
With people in crazy situations.